Greetings, fellow humans. Katrina here. Quick disclaimer. I am a professional. I'm not your professional. Please do not mistake anything that I'm about to say as medical, legal, or otherwise advice. This podcast is purely for my entertainment. Your entertainment and my amusement. And that is it, nothing else. So onward and upward we go. I'll tell you today a bit about emotional regulation. And I don't know everything about emotional regulation, but I do know a little bit. So I'll go ahead and share with you one of the ways that can be quite helpful to know whether or not to continue to feel what we're feeling for a particular duration. Duration is kind of up to us. We don't really get to choose what emotion we feel, right? Because things just kind of pop into our head thought-wise and pop into our body emotion-wise. And we don't get to choose that first thought, feeling, or sensation that comes up, but we do get to choose how to respond to that. And one of those things is deciding how long to feel something. And so one of the ways to do that is by checking the facts. Now, what I mean by that is each emotion that we experience, at least the primary ones, tend to have a particular situation or occurrence that makes sense and goes along with it. I'll give you a few examples. Fear is when there is a threat. And that doesn't have to be a threat to someone's life. It can be your life or someone you care about, but it could also just be a threat to one's health or well-being in some type of way. And that's when fear fits the facts. There's other things probably as well, but an example of when fear doesn't fit the facts, well, that's probably easier said with a story. And so this story is about a guy who walks into his office one day and he opens the door and there's a snake in his office. And he doesn't know one snake from another. He doesn't know what a rattlesnake looks like versus a harmless garden snake. So he's fearful. And that 100% fits the facts because he is in fear of his life, right? There is a threat to his life. He doesn't know what that snake is like. And so he runs away. Fight, flight, freeze, fawn, right? He runs away. Somebody else takes care of it, goes about his day, no problem. So that fear fit the facts and was reasonable, valid, justified, 100%. Thing is, the next day he comes in and before he even touches the doorknob to his office, he experiences that same level of fear. Is it reasonable? Yes. Is it useful? No. It makes perfect sense that he might experience that fear. But the reality of it is that he doesn't know if there's a snake on the other side of the door or not. And so that emotion does not fit the facts and is then unnecessary in that particular moment. And so with that example, he goes ahead and opens the door, having fear and showing up anyway. I do believe Brene Brown calls that courage. And when he enters his office, well, don't you know, there's not a snake today, and he's got relief. Simply checking the facts like that is a way that we are able to decide to continue to feel in some type of way or to shift it with one of our many techniques for emotional regulation. So a few of the other emotions that fit the facts, I want to go through a few of them with you, and then we'll go on to how to check the facts. So anger fits the facts when an important goal is blocked or desired activity is interrupted or prevented. It also may fit the facts when you or somebody you care about is attacked or insulted or even just threatened to be hurt by others. And then also the integrity or status of your social group is offended or threatened. Anger fits the facts in all these situations and more, but it's not always useful. Disgust fits the facts when something you are in contact with could poison or contaminate you. Disgust may also fit the facts when somebody whom you deeply dislike is touching you or someone you care about. And another is when you are around a person or group whose behavior or thinking could seriously damage or harmfully influence you or the group you are a part of. Next emotion that fits the facts is envy. Envy would fit the facts when another person or group gets or has things that you don't have that you want or need. Now, let's be real. Usually it's something we want, not need. Most of us have clothes, food, shelter. Next is jealousy. A very important and desired relationship or object in your life is in danger of being damaged or lost. Another thing that people get jealous about is when one is threatening to take a valued relationship or object away from you. A more pleasant emotion is love, and love really fits the facts. When loving a person, animal, or object either enhances your quality of life or increases your chances of attaining your own personal goals. Most of the times things enhance our quality of life or those that we care about. And I'll admit it, I love my phone. It enhances my life. And moving on to sadness, it fits the facts with any loss. It doesn't matter how big, how small. Sadness fits the facts with a loss, or when things are not the way you wanted or expected and hoped them to be. And it's okay to be sad, but we don't have to stay that way if it doesn't fit the facts. Shame is the next one I'll go to. Shame fits the facts when you will be rejected by a person or group you care about if characteristics of yourself or of your behavior are made public. I have a good example on that one another time. Guilt fits the facts. This is the last one. Guilt fits the facts when your own behavior violates your own values or moral code. And so how intense, let me just say the intensity and duration of an emotion are really justified by three things. According to Marsha, that is, in her DBT Skills Training and Handouts Worksheets, 2nd edition, she says, number one, how likely it is that the expected outcomes will occur. Number two, how great and or important the outcomes are. And number three, how effective the emotion is in your life right now. So we're going to check the facts on something and see whether or not something fits the facts. So how to check the facts is to ask ourselves 6 questions. Number one is, what is the emotion that I want to change? Number two, what is the event prompting my emotion? And that event ought to be described in just the facts, not the judgments and the ascribed meaning and the evaluations of those thoughts, just the facts of the prompting event. Number three is, what are my interpretations, thoughts, and assumptions about the event? This is where we look at the interpretations, potentially different interpretations, looking at different perspectives of a situation, and then even testing your interpretations and assumptions if you like. Number four, am I assuming a threat? The answer is usually yes, and then we want to label what that threat is, whether it's feeling judged, being threatened in a social status sort of way. Whatever the threat that's being assumed, we can assess the probability that that threat or event will really occur, and we can think of as many other possible outcomes as we can. Next is, what is the catastrophe? This is where people with anxiety look at me a little funny because I say, well, let's picture the worst possible thing actually occurring, follow it up with how we survive. And that's how we use that problem solving, coping ahead, or radical acceptance to understand that even if the worst possible thing occurred, we can handle it in the way that we prefer. It's okay to plan ahead for that a little bit. What do they say? Plan for the worst and hope for the best. And you don't have to do that all the time. But if your mind is already what ifing, what if this, what if that, and if you decide that fear doesn't fit the facts because you don't actually know about something, then you can go ahead and decide how you would handle that worst case scenario and move on about your day. With this last question, number 6, does my emotion and or its intensity fit the actual facts? And that's where we get the yes or no answer, checking out the facts that fit each emotion, those few that I reviewed over. And then we can even ask our wise mind, which is an entirely conversation in and of itself, to get into the emotional mind, the rational mind, and the wise mind. A little teaser of that is, I think our wise mind comes from that web of nerves in our gut that science doesn't quite understand yet. And so I do hope that you have been a bit entertained by this overview of emotions that fit the facts and how to actually check the facts of those emotions. Whether or not this is helpful in practice is entirely subjective. And so I encourage you to play around with it. And if it doesn't work, well, the worst thing that can happen is nothing happens, right? I don't know. You'd have to cope ahead on that one. And so remember to like, comment, share. And if you like, you may toss me a couple bucks via Cash App. I am Katrina Dragon. Or don't. I do appreciate each and every one of you for existing.